A marriage without faith is not sustainable. We have been on both sides of the spectrum where we have done it without God and we've done it with God. And we have found that our relationship has thrived and grown in ways we could have never imagined because we put Christ at the center of our relationship. In this episode, we want to explore all of those things with you. We want to discuss specific cultural topics that affect the way people see relationships and the reasons why people don't want to add faith to their relationships. Things such as abuse in relationships, infidelity, divorce, right? Purity culture, topics such as those things. And we also talk about our specific experience, the then and the now. And of course, we end with lots of tips and advice for those of you who are walking the walk of faith in marriage. So stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to Black Marriage Therapy, BMT for short. Here we become students of marriage in order to create healthy, long-lasting relationships. I'm your host, Kristen Smith.
I'm your co-host, Junior Smith.
And in today's episode, we discuss faith in marriage. If you've been enjoying this content, please follow us at Black Marriage Therapy on Instagram, rate us on your podcasting platform, and share your favorite episode with a friend. If you would like to continue the conversation, please join us on our Facebook group at Black Marriage Therapy. There, we encourage each other and share topics and information on our private Facebook group. So specifically in this episode, how we're going to do it, we're going to talk about our experience with being Christian in relationships and how that all happened kind of like in the past and how we got into where we are now. And then we're going to share with you guys all the tips and the tricks and everything that we've learned in regards to navigating faith in your marriage.
Yeah. That's what we're here for. How to make those two things work the best.
So I am talking about the church and what we've been taught in that respect, but also ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not a bashing session, but we are going to be critiquing. So just to start off, let's start with some of the common church culture topics or things that really shape how people see relationships and marriages and kind of our experiences with that. So the biggest one that I know, especially as a woman, is purity culture.
Yes. And as a man, by the way.
And well, I was about to say that.
And as a man.
Well, I was about to say that.
What affects the woman also affected the men in the church.
I was about to say that. Okay. Now, purity culture, I have gone down a rabbit hole, and not a bad rabbit hole, but like just reading books and listening to podcasts about purity culture and the effects that it had on young women and young men who are men and women now who are married.
Yes.
Right. And it was very, very huge. The way it showed up in my church was typical how it showed up with everyone. You split up the boys, split up the girls, and the girls do this whole vow of purity. They tell you not to lose your virginity or you'll be shamed for the rest of your life, things like that.
That did not happen to me.
And you make a vow and you sign a piece of paper that I still have to this day, by the way. You basically do this vow ceremony and then you hold on to your virginity with dear life. Every lustful feeling that you have, you kill it and destroy it with prayer.
Because I'm married to Jesus.
Okay.
I'm married to God.
Okay.
I want to know, what was the messaging when you finally crossed the finish line and you get married because you've been told like, oh, hold on to it. Sex is wrong, right? They make blanket statements, right? You need to be a virgin. What about the time when you don't need to be a virgin because you're married now? What was the prep for that? Or was there no prep for that? Was it like the parents who are just like, just be abstinent?
I mean, the prep was basically like, okay, first of all, everything that you do and how you walk is going to affect your brother in Christ, the boys around you. So make sure that you're walking in a way that is mindful of the men around you, which is detrimental in a lot of ways, right? And the messaging was definitely like, boys can't control themselves, boys have urges and they want to look, so therefore it's up to you to maintain your modesty and all these things in order for you to stay pure, but then after getting married, it was just like, and I told you this, I made this joke, I was like, oh, I'm still a virgin. I literally said that because my mind, maybe I just disassociated. That's the fancy, therapy word. I could not reconcile not being a virgin anymore. And I felt like because I got married and, and I kept my virginity, then I didn't lose it. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Okay. I know it sounds a little bit crazy and wonky, but that's really what it felt like. I couldn't figure out how, like, okay, well, now I'm not a virgin. Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, I guess I'm still a virgin kind of because I waited until I was married.
That sounds like the person who used hate to motivate them to lose weight. And then they lose the weight and they can't lose the hate.
Dang. Okay.
So
we getting deep quick.
That's what that sounds like. Like the making general strokes provides people the wrong motivation because you oversimplify it. And now that they've reached the goal that you've painted for them, they don't know what to do with themselves because you didn't give them the complex full picture.
Exactly.
I said purity culture affected men as well because there's two sides to every coin. So if you're telling women like, hey, make sure that you're dressing modestly, make sure that you stay a virgin, then inadvertently you're telling men as well, like, you can be set off by her clothes and that's okay. We're telling men that if she's not a virgin, she's damaged goods, right? So everything that you're doing leaves an imprint, right? And it's unfortunately like, well, I don't know if it was unintentional or not, but it seems unintentional.
Yeah.
Right? Because it seems like we're trying to paint broad strokes to help everybody, but we're not honoring the complexities of issues. So for men, of course, like I said, it was anything can set you off, and that was okay because there really wasn't any strategy around self-discipline.
Yes.
Nothing like that. It's not until I got older and I realized I need to get self-discipline for myself sexually. I started looking into it, and yes, there's resources out there for men, for young men. The Bible says, how do you keep yourself pure as a young man? Keep your eye gates pure. And so I had to look into that for myself. It wasn't brought to me, right? And the conversation of sex by itself wasn't brought to me.
Yeah.
Birds and bees, I'm still waiting, to have that conversation. I got 2 kids in. So I feel like a lot of the strategy was just avoid.
For boys?
For girls too. For girls, in some situations, it was chastity, purity, and avoid. For guys, it was just mainly avoid, honestly speaking. And so, yeah, I didn't have any kind of anything.
So if you are interested in learning more about purity culture, and like, I would suggest Theology in the Raw, which is a podcast. And I would...
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
And I would suggest Sheila Gregoire, because she's talked to a lot of women who's been taught by purity culture. And the consequences of that is relationships where they are, I don't want to say sexually abused, but sexually intimidated a lot of the times. And, it's Christian men using...
For sure. Sexually disempowered.
Yeah,
on purpose.
Sexually disempowered.
For sure.
And there's so much research and information on this. So if you really, really want to learn, and maybe you had this experience and maybe you realize, oh, this is affecting my marriage, you can learn about this. Because one thing that I learned is that the purity culture movement from the church actually came as a reaction to the feminist movement in the 60s, I believe, 60s or 70s. And the church started to scramble, right? And as the church does sometimes, okay, this is a critique.
Broad strokes.
We often react instead of be proactive, right? So instead of teaching young people from the word of God from the jump, right, what sex is and how to do it, blah, 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 they reacted out of the world saying, hey, we are sexually liberal, we're sexually free, we could do whatever we want, yada, 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 right? And because of that, they kind of just like ran with kind
Rushed.
of opposite of what the world was doing, instead of like, wait, biblically, what is the best way for us to teach young people about purity and things like that? So purity culture is one of those things that definitely shaped our marriage and how we saw marriage in the church in regards to like faith in marriage, is what we're talking about today. Another big thing in the church was the role of a man and the role of a woman, gender roles. We just say it that way. Yeah.
Roles.
And I know you wanted to talk about specifically like leadership.
So leadership was my number one thing when it comes to the intersect between faith and marriage. So looking for an answer, right, in the church for what does leadership look like as a male, because that's my role. I don't know. A lot of people were just pulling together their own definitions. I think men are still doing that to this day. Just making up their own definition as they go along. There's no objective truth to it. So in reality, I just found myself making my own definition as well, and just making sure it looked good on the outside. So checking boxes like praying, making sure you prayed, making sure, we read the Bible, making sure we went to church.
Yeah.
And there was times we didn't go to church, being on time.
I think that like the spiritual aspect was okay. I think sometimes you did make me feel bad if I wasn't like praying or like wanting to go to church or whatever like that. Not in a bad way, but like you were like, hey.
Yeah, because I wanted you to help me out. Like,
help you out with what?
It's like, we need to look the part. Like, that's the only thing I know to do right now. Like, because you want to measure how effective you are. I want to measure how effective I am as a spiritual leader. And so if I'm a spiritual leader and I have a wife who's praying, reading the Bible, coming to church with me, participating, I'm a good spiritual leader. But if I have a wife and I'm the spiritual leader who's like, what is that? Psalms? Is it Job? Is it 1 Corinthians? Not coming to church, whatever like that, that must mean I'm a bad spiritual leader. And that is the only thing that I know when it comes to leadership and faith. It's just like being a spiritual leader,
priest, provider, protector.
Just priest. I feel like provider and protector is outside the church anyway. I feel like the only thing the only intersect between a man of God,
you feel like
marriage, for me, growing up, was spiritual leader.
You feel like provider and protector is outside the church?
I feel like that's a given. I don't know. Like, it's not specific to just church. Being a provider and protector.
But the messaging around how they talked about those things.
They didn't. They did not.
That's very interesting.
So
what do you mean they didn't?
So when I ask married men, then they can give me some insight to talk about like providing, which is basically making money. Protecting is basically like
you gotta fight.
You gotta fight. You gotta fight. If it go bump in the night, you gotta fight. Like that's basically what it was. That's it. Minimal conversation.
Yeah. How did that make you feel? Let's just go deep a little bit. Like going into marriage with very minimal conversation and just a very surface level understanding of these things.
I was very confident. I was very confident with the little that I knew, because the one thing that I did know is that you have to be confident. You have to be confident. You may not know it, but you have to be confident. Like you just have to, like you're supposed to not know it, but you're supposed to still be confident. You're supposed to go in there confident, bro. And don't let your wife see that you're not confident. And she's going to want you to be confident and not show her that you don't know. And, you're going to figure it out as you go along. And you may have these secret meetings with another guy where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And like, you share secrets real fast. And then you go back out. You go back to being confident. That's the one thing I knew was like, oh, okay, I don't know anything. I'm supposed to be confident. And I will learn as I go along. And remain confident at all times.
And how do you think that affected our relationship?
I think it was terrible. I think that's the quickest way to end a relationship, because it means I cannot reveal myself to you, which means I don't have a way of escape. So I'm constantly holding my breath, number one. Number two, I cannot be influenced by you. I cannot take your suggestions because I already know, quote unquote, what I'm supposed to do, which is just ignore you and stay confident. I cannot be influenced by you.
Ignore me.
Yeah.
Damn.
I was supposed to lead you, not listen to you.
Yeah.
So, but I don't even know what I'm doing. But I got the same gist from other men as I talk to them. They don't even know what they're doing. And it worked out fine. Honestly speaking, it works out fine when men don't know what they're doing and they stay confident. It works out fine. Bills get paid. The wives don't ask questions, and
which wives?
Life keep rolling on, bro.
Who?
Maybe men of old. Maybe all the men of old. That's the way it worked perfectly fine.
Okay,
that's why,
welcome to 2023.
That's why it was so successful. That's why that was what was handed down to me because it worked for them. Maybe it's not gonna work today because his husband and wife coming home from a long day of work.
Come on.
At the same time, dishes still in the sink though. Back in the day, it's easier to get roles, right? Roles just make sense. You home all day. Now we both come home from a long day of work.
Yep.
We both yawning. And there's 2 kids. And there's 2 of us. Today's times are different.
So, well, I'm glad you talked about that because the role of the woman, I feel like they talked about that all the time. I feel like that's the most
discussed subject.
Do you know what's so interesting is, and we're going to talk about this more later, as I start to search the scriptures for myself, there is more specifics on how husbands are to live and treat their wives and do things than there are specifics on wives.
And it doesn't feel like that.
And the way they preach it, you would think that what they're saying is law, is Bible, because the few verses that are there that are specific to how women should act and move and be treated, they take that and they run. And they run far and they run fast. My gosh, the sermons I've heard, okay, that are really, really, really ridiculous. So on the opposite end, while you weren't getting much conversation, we were getting drilled. Woo, like we were in. And okay, so I'm also from a Caribbean background. So you already get that from your mother. Right? You wake up early, you wash your clothes, you do this. My mom has told me, if you don't know how to wash dishes, you ain't gonna be able to keep a husband. If you don't know how to cook, you're gonna be able to keep a husband. If you don't lose some weight, you're gonna be able to keep a husband. My mom has said these things to me. Okay. All right. So this is like my upcoming, like the way I've been brought up.
Training for a husband.
Oh man. And then so to add the faith piece is what we're talking about, is like in the church, they do that, but they use the word of God. So we were constantly, monitored, and like they're checking how you dress. And I had a friend who is shapely. That's just how if she was naked, she would be shapely. And they would, man, the comments she would get about her skirt and her shirt and her this and her that. And I'm like, that is her body. Like she's wearing baggier clothes and her shape just shows. Right. And we were constantly monitored and constantly like, hey, there's an expectation. And to be honest, for me, it made me very bitter because
and to share with them where your business is coming from. Let's just share this real quick example of that shapely friend, of the story of a preacher. He was one of the preachers. And I can't give too much information. The wife addressed the shapely friend, saying that preacher man was having thoughts of sleeping with her. How old is she?
She was a teenager at the time.
A teenager.
Yeah.
The pastor, how old was he?
A grown man.
Married.
And the wife was approaching her.
And the wife was approaching the teenage girl with the baggy clothes already, saying that she's causing her husband to fall into lust because he's dreaming of sleeping with that teenage girl.
Exactly. So you can kind of see how
the convoluted.
It's so you took the word right out of my mouth. It's so convoluted.
They're watching you,
bro.
And the preacher is not responsible.
Exactly.
For his oath to his wife, his oath to the parishioners in the church,
his oath to God.
For his oath to God, for his self-control is up to the girl that's already wearing baggy clothes.
Exactly. So you can just you saying that, you can see the burden and the weight. And we were teenagers at this time. We didn't know left from right. We were just learning what we were learning. Okay. But we carried such a heavy weight and burden of like the way we have to walk and the way we have to talk and everything that we do, because it can cause people to fall, and like how our body looks, and like we were always like scrutinized every act that we did. And coming from a Caribbean culture as well, if you know this, you're also supposed to be meek and mild.
Yes.
Right. So on top of the way you dress, because that's one way modesty, but also being meek and mild and not speaking up too much and not, causing ruffling.
Agreeable.
Yeah. Being agreeable.
As agreeable as possible.
Being agreeable. And what I've found is that we are constantly being disciplined or like forced into the box because we're like, this is what a woman is. This is what a wife is. And if you're not doing that, you are going to be scrutinized.
Yeah.
All right. Especially in the Caribbean Christian culture space.
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing for the guys. Not as bad as yours. Now, I'm not taking anything away from you, but the same thing, a guy's supposed to be, ambitious. You want victory. You want to take over the world. You want to eat raw meat, whatever type stuff. So you have a guy who is more sensitive or a guy who is more talkative or guys. You're getting the same thing, bro. Yes. Same thing, like these strong forces, strong push, to fit in this box of what you're supposed to be. And you would have other men like look at you weird. So one example for me, because obviously I'm not the typical male, let's just be honest. But I was at church, and this was no harm, no foul. Okay, no harm, no foul. All right. I'm not gonna say this, but it's a traumatic moment in my life. It's not.
Okay.
Okay. The only reason I remember is to bring this up now.
Yeah.
But I was at the church just chilling. There was like 4 guys there, and then one guy just pushed me. And they all just like pushing me. And I was just letting them push me. And then they was like, yo, don't let me push you, bro. I was like 15, 16. And I was just like, bro, why you keep pushing me? And I just couldn't figure out what they were doing. I was really in my mind, like cerebral, like, what is happening? Right? I'm really trying to think. I'm trying to talk to them. And they're like, no, just get physical, man. And I'm like, but why do you keep pushing me? And they just gave up.
You sit here trying to think.
They just gave up. They were just like, yeah, man, don't let anybody they're trying to cap it with like a lesson. Yeah, man, don't let anybody push you, you got to push them back. And I was like, nah, I didn't understand that. I don't know if that made them feel bad.
Yeah.
That I didn't just automatically know what to do.
Yeah.
But I really was questioning them, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, so society will try to put you in that box if you don't fit the description.
So for me, what happened is that it left me bitter, and it left me going into marriage with a chip on my shoulder. Like, I don't know who they think I'm gonna be. Because the thing is, it didn't deter me from marriage, because I always wanted to be married.
Okay.
Right. But I think at the same time, I went into the relationship kind of like with a chip on my shoulder. Like, you know what? Like, I don't want to be that wife or whatever like that. And guess what? I still end up doing that.
You did exactly. I didn't see no chip.
I know.
I didn't see not a Frito-Lay. I didn't see not a salt and vinegar.
But
nothing.
But you know what? It was very internal. I internalized it. Right. So on the outward, I was doing everything that I was being drilled to do. Like, you wash clothes, you clean, you suck.
Now, I was thinking the same thing.
You do? No, really. Like, you give sex, you cook, you clean, you're meek and mild. But then at the same time, I feel like I had like a fire raging in me, because I just was like, I just don't, I always had this thing about me, and Junior knows, I could not settle with the fact that this is all women are supposed to do and all they're supposed to be. I always struggled and questioned God and said, did you create me for this, just this? Right. And it bothered me to the point, like, even to this day. And I had to take it to God and really ask him questions, because it just bothered me. I said, I could not understand that my whole existence was just for this thing. Right. And I think it's important, and I think it's vital to society and all those things. But I'm just like, God, I just feel like you created me for more than just this.
I will say this though, you definitely like assumed the role, but I would definitely say our marriage was not growing.
No.
I was not being challenged. I did not know what I was doing. You weren't challenging me.
No.
Nobody on the outside was challenging me, because we looked the part. We looked right. You know what I mean? We had our own place. Our car was going to school. No babies. So they looked at us and I was like, all right, let's move on. Right? Bigger fish to fry. I'm so glad that you are speaking up. And now that we're here, everything is clear, right? Moving forward. Every day I don't wake up clear, though.
Speaking of clarity, this episode is sponsored by Magic Mind, the herbal supplement. I realized that we are entrepreneurs. We are parents. We are, name it. We are sons and daughters
of the king. I don't know where you're going with that.
I'm just saying that we have very busy lives, right? And sometimes it's hard for us to focus on the things that's right in front of us because our mind is just scattered and unclear. So we have tried Magic Mind. I think most people, they try coffee. They try energy drinks.
I tell you not to drink coffee.
Listen, let me tell you, I've tried it all. And I got to try Magic Mind, guys. And I ain't gonna lie. I ain't got no reason to lie to y'all. This junk works. Let me tell you the reason why I know it works. I started taking this drink the week before my period. Any woman who knows the week before their period what's happening, you are foggy, you are cloudy, you are moody. Okay. And forget focusing. It is chips and TV. Okay. Right. But every morning I would take this drink as a replacement to my coffee. And I was just hyper focused. And on it, I didn't notice until the third day. And I was
the third night of you busting out content.
Okay.
And coming up with new ideas.
Turns out it was the drink because, the hardest thing for me is distractions. Like that's my thing. So this was really, really, really helpful. So I want to read the ingredients because I think they're important. So there's matcha green tea, agave. It has ashwagandha. Oh, Lord. Am I going to be able to say this? Bacopa Monera. It has tons of mushrooms, guys.
Yeah. Shrooms. Help you focus.
It has turmeric, lion's mane, cordyceps, lithianine, and then vitamins.
A whole bunch of vitamins. That's it.
Yeah.
You shake it, you breathe, and then you drink. Don't forget, breathe in the middle.
Don't forget the breathe part. But it's like a little shot form. So it's a small bottle. I take it in like 2 sips, but the taste is acquired. But it's not terrible. It's not like, ew, I have to spit this out.
If you do it every day, you'll be fine.
Yeah. But, there's an acquired taste. So if you guys are interested, actually, I want you guys to go and try this because especially if you're a heavy coffee drinker and you have that crash, I want you to go and try this. But guess what? So if you go to magicmind.com/Black Marriage, you will get 50% off your subscription for the next 10 days with our code BlackMarriage20.
So how do you?
Can you say that again? BlackMarriage20. So you got to go to magicmind.com/Black Marriage and you'll get 50% off your subscription for the next 10 days with our code BlackMarriage20.
Wow.
So let's get back to the topic. We're talking about faith and marriage. Another thing that I want to talk about in regards to culture and marriage and faith, as far as one of those topics, is abuse, infidelity, and divorce. So I think, and the reason why I want to talk about these things, because I really think these are things like purity culture and leadership and gender roles that really shape how people feel about letting faith into their marriage. Because if people are talking about, if the church is talking about marriage in a way that it seems so stringent and almost like a cage, people are not going to want to introduce that into their marriage.
For sure.
Right. So I want to talk about abuse, infidelity, and divorce. And not because I am an expert on these things, because just being on the outside, these are things that I always had questions about. And I think this is part of where the church may have failed or where the church could have done better, is because it was very confusing for me, because I'm like, especially as a woman, I'm like, how am I protected? How am I safe? You're telling me either explicitly or, unintentionally that if I'm in an abusive relationship, I have to stay. You're telling me that, divorce is not an option, but not in a way to say like you should stay, committed. They're not saying it like that.
Deal with it.
They're saying deal with whatever trash your spouse is bringing and don't get divorced.
Yeah. I don't know how you deal with this stuff, because this is the way it's always been. Like, the world has been such a part of influencing the church when it comes to marriage. Like, look in the Bible, you'll find it. Infidelity. They grabbed a woman who was caught in cheating and was going to stone her to death, and thought that was okay to just grab the woman, and brought her to Jesus, as a matter of fact. Never thinking, should we just grab the man? Never thinking, is he going to ask for the man? Like, the man is not he's not a part of this equation. And that's in the Bible. You see that. So it's been like this forever. The world has been influencing church's idea of women's role in marriages since before Jesus was here, obviously.
I don't know if it's because it's such a sensitive topic. Like people don't know what to do about it, that they're not even willing to research and find out. I feel like kind of that is how the justice system works with like domestic violence and things like that. They just don't want to get their hands involved, that they just kind of like leave it the way it is, because there's women who are still in prison for killing their abusers. Yeah. Like the man who was going to kill them, they are in jail for protecting themselves and killing their abusers.
Oh, I mean, we've all heard the black lady who's in jail for firing warning shots.
For firing warning shots. She had a firearm. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, but then, when the woman calls, then they don't take, or the man goes to jail for a week,
come back,
sometimes a weekend, sometimes not at all, and come right back. I understand that it is super complex, right? But I think that is where, the church is lacking. Like, God, how do we talk about this? How do we address this? Even if we don't have the answers, there are people in marriages who are suffering, who are dealing with infidelity, who are dealing with abuse, who are dealing with facing divorce. And are we talking to it, or even providing resources in a way where we can address it in a complex way?
In the church I grew up, I didn't see infidelity, but I did see abuse. There was 2 other women besides my mom, by the way, who was married, and they were being abused by their husbands, and everybody knew it. And the husbands didn't come to church, obviously, but, there was no conversation. There was no talk. It was avoided. It was stay strong. It was something that is not supposed to be fixed. It's just supposed to be encouraged. Mm-hmm. You just encourage that person. That just means they need extra hugs. That's what that really means. Like, we're not supposed to be trying to fix any issue. I think marriage is it's interesting because marriage is so personal.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And every marriage is different. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny that we let that stop us from things that we know is obviously wrong. Mm-hmm. Of course, every marriage is different. Does that mean, I don't know if I can say something if you're getting beat by your husband? Like, I don't know. Every marriage is different. We don't know. Mm-hmm. Is your husband touching your daughter? We don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can speak on that. We need clarity from the Bible about that stuff, right? I can't preach from the pulpit about domestic abuse. I can't preach from the pulpit about sexual abuse. I can't preach about that because every marriage, we don't know how that goes, which is strange, right? Just to see and someone maybe need to teach me. Maybe I'm in a space of privilege, but just to talk a little bit more about the avoiding these hard conversations from the pulpit. Looking back at it now, I can't fully understand why. I know it'd be a hard conversation, and I know you wouldn't want to ruffle feathers and encourage, a person to go do something that may not work out for them.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't know, avoiding hot topics is doing anything better.
Exactly. And I think the way it affected our relationship, it just gave us different glasses to look at marriage, right? And different aspects. For me, especially on an internal level, I had a lot of confusion. I had a lot of bitterness towards God. I had a lot of bitterness towards men, in the church. And I feel like I resented them. Like when they talk about submission and you see the abuse, you see infidelity, you see divorce. And I was just confused. Yeah. I was confused. Yeah. And I felt like I brought that into my marriage on a very subtle note, but kind of like a smoldering anger, like a very low-key bitterness in my own heart.
Yeah, no, I mean, the same exact way it affected you, it affected me in our marriage. Whatever we learned coming up, right? Faith and marriage, how it's supposed to work, it just left with a whole bunch of confusion. I was just so confused.
I was
just so confused. I was constantly confused. I was in the world. I was less confused, as a matter of fact.
They got it straightforward.
Less confused.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I was talking with the people who worked at my job, who were my age or older, a little bit or younger, and they told me I made the mistake of a lifetime. They'll tell me I'm supposed to be partying. They'll tell me I'm supposed to be having sex. They tell me I'm supposed to be sowing my royal oats. They got
the formula down pat.
I'm supposed to be experimenting. That's the word.
Yeah.
Figure out what I like, what my body likes. I'll come into the church, I'll just be so confused, bro. And so because I was so confused. I was dealing with too much. On the outside, the world's advice. On the inside,
they just weren't saying enough in the church.
They're not saying enough.
Everything was surface, especially with us growing up.
I just didn't know how you can get 1 + 1 and then get 7. I'm like, not enough input to get that kind of output. And so that's why I'm so excited to talk about the tools we have for people and talk about the education we can give on different topics, modern education, and especially talk to our couples who are underserved. Man, that's a blessing. That's a mission, a commission I'm grateful to have.
Mm-hmm. So that was then. Let's talk about now and how faith has been a part of our marriage. We have learned so much about how faith intertwines with marriage. And now, like, if you're watching this, if you're listening, you can't tell, but if you're watching this, I am smiling a big, great smile because now that I've really understood it, I feel like it has transformed our marriage to a whole nother level. Yeah. And we're still learning because I think there's still certain things, like it's hard for me to pray in front of Junior. That's something that's like, it's weird, but true. Because it's just like, those are things that I'm still working on. But other than that, like how we intertwine faith into marriage, it feels like the real deal. It like you take off all those layers and all those, oh, well, it has to look like this, it has to look like this. And this is what your marriage looks like, all this stuff. And when you really get into the nitty gritty of what it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, it feels like it belongs there. Mm-hmm. Where faith at first was like, I don't know if this puzzle piece fits. I don't know if we're going to keep doing this. Right? Some people, they start with faith in their marriage and then one person falls off and the other person's like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to just keep going because I was raised this way. Right? I never could see someone outside of the faith coming into the faith now as a married couple unless it actually works, unless they're actually doing it for real.
Yeah.
And that's the problem sometimes. You're so familiar with it, you're just doing the outside stuff. And people outside who are not familiar with it, but they got the real deal. And so like you said, when you get down to the nitty gritty, it feels like faith belongs in every marriage.
Yes,
it's supposed to be here. There's a place for faith in your marriage,
that's
right?
Good.
And it's a life. It's a spring that brings newness, brings oneness, togetherness into your marriage, bro.
This is our number one tip for those of you who are, adding faith into your marriage. Because there are pastors who have the sermons, and there's friends and there's so many things. But we sought the scriptures, the Bible, we sought God for ourselves and for our marriage. And that is the main thing that changed the trajectory of how we bring faith and make Christ the center of our relationship.
Listen, let me tell you something. Chris and I came up with the same answer, right? Separately. Okay, we didn't decide this, but the question was, what would you tell the 18-year-old self as they're getting into this marriage and they're trying to incorporate faith? And the answer is seek God for yourself. Not even, let's do a couple's Bible devotional. Forget that. Not even that. Not even there. Like the marriage is made out of two healthy individuals. Well, the faith of a marriage is made of two healthy individuals as well, who have a strong, healthy relationship with God. Seek God for yourself. It is such a tragedy that I had to answer right there in the Bible at 18 years old. That I never flipped through the pages for myself. Let me tell you something. That also includes letting go of what you think it should look like for your spouse.
Come on.
Because for me, I was like, well, this is the way I do it. I was raised to wake up at 5 a.m. and have devotion. My wife is asleep and it's 6, 7, 8 a.m.
I'm sleeping.
She's asleep. She has no conviction.
Nope.
No discernment. Is in that body.
Shut up.
And so I would look at her crazy. But guess what? When I started seeking God for myself, he was one that said, hey, this is your schedule, looks like this. And don't worry about your wife because she's going to meet with me too. Her schedule look like that. I had a really big problem with God because I was like, you set us up for failure. And I kept questioning and seeking and sometimes running away from it. And, I couldn't find an answer because I feel like my heart wasn't ready to receive the answer. Of course.
But he gave me an answer.
He did.
And he really did help me understand. And that has brought me so much peace and so much love because I have like a understanding of what God originally intended. And once I found that out, I realized, he's really and truly loving. And, people of this world, they could be wicked, but his original intention for me was always loving and always good, right? So for those of you who do have questions, right, who do have specific, like, what about abuse or what about, listen, God can answer those things for you.
Listen, you're going to have questions. Not for those of you guys who may have, you're going to have questions. You should have questions. Be curious.
You should, especially when it comes to things also for your relationship, because just because your pastor does it one way, just because your parents who could be spiritual leaders for you, just because they do it one way, doesn't mean that you have to do it another way, right? God could be leading you to do something differently. And I'm not talking about like standard things like don't like cheating on your spouse. Oh, well, they didn't cheat, so I could cheat. I'm not talking about silly things like that. But I'm saying like if it turns out that you are the breadwinner or like you have a vision and maybe your husband doesn't, and you're like, well, no, that's not how my daddy did it. Oh, that's not how, Pastor so-and-so did it. So we must be out of order. Don't do that to your relationship. Seek God for yourself. Read the scriptures for yourself. Pray and ask him. Because you don't know what it could look like, and you may get your relationship all wrapped up trying to make it look like somebody else's relationship.
And let me speak to you about the benefits of doing this, of actually seeking God for yourself and having a relationship. Because not only is it going to benefit you individually, it's going to benefit your marriage and your kids if you have kids. It's going to set them up in the right way. I find that having this personal time with God, independent of your spouse, is homeostasis. How do you call it? It's maintenance. It's bringing you back in line.
Into balance, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's bringing you back into balance. Anything that brings you into balance, right? Something to set your life by, right? It's like that thing. It's called a metronome, I think. It goes left and right, going back and forth like this.
Yeah.
It's something you set your life by.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Talking to God, asking him questions throughout your life about your marriage, about yourself, asking for directions, asking for advice and instructions. You can set your life on that, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That's a well that is never perishing.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to continue to give you directions, insights that you can't gain anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Insights that you can go and do the therapy, which is wonderful. You can go and listen to the sermon, which is wonderful. But it's so interesting. God has something specifically for you in that personal time that you spend with him that he's going to give you, and it's going to be so specified to you.
Mm-hmm.
And he has millions of these things to give you, so much so that he has stuff for you, your personal life. He has tips and tricks for your kids, how to reach them. He has tips and tricks for your marriage and what to do. He has personal development stuff. He got community outreach stuff. He has ideas for you to build.
Yeah.
He has all this stuff personally just for you with your name on it to give you in this personal time, in the space that you give him.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you a better benefit than that. It's a gift that keeps on giving, that pays for itself, right? It pays for itself with your time and with you dedicating and understanding, like, I need to be intentional about this.
I think that, something that you say, if you're really trying to do this, like Christ in the center of my relationship, like how do I really put Christ in our relationship? One thing that Junior always says is don't just make a space for God, give him a say in your relationship, right? And what we're talking about takes work. I think everything that we talk about takes work because we don't believe in the easy way out when it comes to these things, because we know that the fruit of the hard way or the more, difficult path is deeply rooted and it's long lasting. It's eternal versus the short path. We give you the easy way out. Oh, just make sure you guys pray before you go to work. That's enough. No, that's not enough. That's giving God a space. Giving God a space means you go to church on Sunday as a couple, right? Okay. You bring the kids, you taking the children to church, right? Okay. But other than that, he does not have a say in your relationship. So giving God a space is not enough. Right. And God usually doesn't fare well with like, oh yeah, we got a Bible on our mantle and we go to church, and that's not enough. He wants to have a say in your relationship. That means you guys are actually praying about certain decision. You guys are actually, reading your scripture and your word about certain things. Like, wait, how do we go about this? How do we navigate this? Oh God, we're really having a hard time with this specific issue about how we supposed to move, how we supposed to do, right? And does he have a say? Can he tell you what to do about how in your heart?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can he correct you?
Can he influence your decision?
Can he influence you? Right? Where you feel gung-ho, you're like, nope, this is how I feel like it should be. And, God's like, no, actually, Junior's right. Actually, you need to do left this and that. Right? Does he actually have a say that you're willing to heed and submit to?
Yes. And it's
God.
It's not that hard to find out. Like, honestly, like that's the one thing people ask me, how do I know if God has to say, how do I know? Because I say it all the time. It's not that hard to find out. I can clearly tell you the days when God had to say and when he doesn't. Even now I can tell you because it's very obvious because you're following yourself. There's no sacrifice when you're following yourself. There's no double checking because it's yourself. You already know what you want.
Come on.
And there's making sure that the check boxes are checked when you're following yourself.
Yeah.
It's all about the outward appearance. We can both have fruit. It's just one that is coming from the inside, and there's one that is manufactured to look like what it's supposed to look like.
Like them GMO apples.
That's it. That's it. That's it. I'll do you one better, like a plastic apple. A plastic apple, you really have to work on it looking real because that's all it has to offer. A real apple can be dingy. It's real. It's almost like the truth. You don't have to work hard to make the truth sound like the truth. It's the truth.
It's the truth.
So it doesn't matter how crazy it sounds. It's like, well, that's what happened. I walked outside and 3 apples fell on my head. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have to. A lie you have to engineer. You have to base it off of the truth. And so it's easy. I'm not going to give you that one. Oh, I don't really know if I'm really letting God have a space or a place. Yes, you do. Just look at it for yourself. Are you engineering your life around what it's supposed to look like? Or do you naturally have this thing inside of you that is flowing out of you that's causing you to change, causing you to question, causing you to sacrifice, causing you to grow? Right? You got to check for growth spiritually.
That's another tip. Yeah.
Check for growth spiritually. That's a huge tip because in our relationship, we make the decision to make God the center of our life. But I will give you this. We so easily fall back into following ourselves.
Easily.
We make the decision, God is the center of my life. But you really have to check on that. You can't set it and forget it. Because you'll go 2 years, 12 years in thinking, oh yeah, I said that. But
it'll be nice and burnt up.
It's burnt to a crisp. Your actions are totally different. You're walking in a totally different direction, right? That's why you have to check to make sure that you are growing spiritually, right?
Yeah.
And even for your spouse.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you go in there with a diagnostic and be like, all right, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to speak in tongues. You're going to interpret it. You don't have to do something like that. But you are checking for growth for yourself and for your spouse.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure you're even in the right space, right heart condition to do something like that.
Yeah.
I don't want you going into like a drill sergeant, like, you know what's best. But if you guys aren't growing spiritually, and this is what I mean by that, your spouse should be able to talk to you about something they're learning from God. Simple as that. There should be a spiritual conversation somewhere in the week where you guys are both talking about your development, something you're learning from God. If the only thing you guys are talking about throughout the whole week, every conversation is this fun thing that's going on, this great event, oh, talk about our kids, that's so wonderful. There's no spiritual conversation going on. You're not growing spiritually. And I don't mean you regurgitating something you heard on Sunday, because I used to do that. I used to go on Sunday and go deeper into whatever the pastor said and thought that was me going deep, but it wasn't. It was still me waiting for the pastor to feed me. All I did was throw it up and eat it again. That's it. I'm talking about you having a spirit-led conversation with the Lord, or instruction with him, where he's giving you, oh, let me have you look into this further. And you're like, oh, I want to talk to you about what I'm learning. Oh, I want to talk to you about.
I have to add to this because I think that we underestimate that spiritual growth. And
making everyone happy on vacation isn't easy. But you know what is? Going to Aruba. All you have to do is walk out your door to find pristine pools, relaxing white sand beaches, and an island teeming with outdoor activities that'll put a smile on any face. You won't just feel great, you'll all feel great, filled with a calmer, more peaceful vibe that radiates Aruba's warmth. And the best part is, it never fades. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your family trip at Aruba.com.
Marriage and how it affects our marriages, I think we underestimate it so much because the growth that you're doing spiritually with God directly affects how you are in relationship with your partner. There are so many things on a personal level that God has dealt with me one-on-one, okay, blow for blow, that has directly, I have been able to turn around and say, hey, God is dealing with me with shame. God is redeeming my heart about my parents' divorce. God is doing this. God is doing that. And I'm having conversations. My husband's praying for me on the side. He's seeking the Lord. He's like, oh, babe, I was learning about this and I was learning about that. We're sharpening iron and sharpening iron. And our relationship is benefiting because of it. We are not talking out the side of our neck. We are talking from experience. No. And what Junior is talking about is true. If you are not constantly checking, and I'm not talking about in a neurotic way. Yeah. I'm talking about really being cognizant and present. If you are not checking in on your spiritual walk, you will easily drift away, because I have done it, and by the power of God and his grace, he has brought me right back. Yes. But we drift so easily. Of course. So we have to see and recognize how vital and how important it is for us to be spiritually growing. Yes. In our relationship, and how that directly affects our marriage. We have to believe that and see that it's true. Oh, yeah. But you'll only know if you're willing to put the work in to see the fruit. Yeah. And if you're not putting the work in, you're not going to see the fruit. Bro, put the work in for yourself, by the way. Like, don't take this and show it to your partner. Take it and show it to yourself. Put your own eyeballs on it. Like, do the work for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I love the fact that you said check in, because that's a nice way to put it. Mm-hmm. With my spouse, with my wife, I'm just checking in on her. I'm not telling her how to go do it. Expect the drift. Mm-hmm. Listen, I expect the drift. I expect her to drift. I expect for me to drift. Come on. So I'm just checking in. That's it. Hey, how you doing with your spiritual walk? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so funny that I don't have to go outside my house to be edified spiritually anymore. I don't have to go wait till preacher opens his mouth or the gang gets together where I'm like, oh, let's talk about this. I can have this own conversation with my wife in my home and learn a whole lesson. It's opened up a whole new path to learning more about God and myself, because it's with my wife. This is your first community. Your first community. Oh, speaking of community, though, because that was one of my tips. We are talking about seeking the Lord for yourself as an individual, as a couple, giving God a say and not just giving him a space. And we're talking about us as together as a couple. But my tip is in regards to community, right? Community is not just the people you hang around. Can I say it again? Community is not just the people you hang around. Community are people who are in alignment with you. Okay. Right? They are in a like mind, in alignment with you. So when I talk about community in regards to marriage, I'm not just talking about just randos that's people around you. Other people who are married. Other people who are married. Even that's not enough, right? It's important. I would say my tip in regards to faith in marriage is having community around you, but that is aligned with you and aligned with how your model of marriage, I guess I can say, because you don't want. I've had experiences coming up north, right, where for some reason it was like a cookie cutter type of marriages. Like, I feel like we were in Stepford Wives. Everybody talked the same. Everybody did everything the same. When you asked about certain issues, the response was the same. You just got to pray and fast, brother. And it was weird. It was, it was weird. I'm sorry. So I realized that, but outside of, those people who were like very cookie cutter, we were able to find some real deal people who were walking the walk we were walking. Yes. Which is they were seeking for themselves. They were able to share revelations with us because they were reading the Bible. They were having conversations with their couples, and we were able to lean on them as a support system now, right? Because they're in the same vein. They're not just trying to tell us what to do in our marriage. They're not just trying to be judgmental. They're not just trying to say, oh, well, obviously you're doing this wrong. They are there to support and encourage us to continue to seek God for our relationship. And to give us revelation, like, oh, I was praying for you, and I realized that, or you were talking about this, and I read a scripture, and I hope that this is encouraging to you, right? So they were walking the same walk. They were in alignment with the life we were trying to live with God in our marriage. You need to find people like that, like-minded people, because it really does help fortify and strengthen your marriage. Specifically in this season that we're in now, we have two couples who are, I think it just so happened, or maybe by God's grace, who is walking the same walk we are walking. And they have been such a source of strength and support and encouragement, because we could call them, boop, 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 girl. This is what's happening, yada, 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 what's going on? And she's like, yep, that's what's happening. And, you know, she's encouraging me, but also spiritually. Oh, I was reading the scripture and I was thinking of you. Have you prayed about that? You know, all those things. So finding people, community, not just anybody, not just your friends and them, okay? Like-minded people who are aligned on the same goals and the same path that you're trying to,
I
reach
agree
for
with
your
that
marriage.
wholeheartedly because, and I'll share you this secret. I only communicate with those people who are like-minded with me. I have so many people, so many friends who are married with kids. Don't talk to them. So it's not just the demographic information.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, are you young? I'm young. Are you black? Oh, I'm black. Oh, are you married? I'm married. Oh, we have to be buds now. No. Yeah, we could talk. We're cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cordial.
Mm-hmm.
But I pick up the phone. I find myself talking to those people who are like-minded like me.
Mm-hmm.
People are not going to give me platitudes. People are not going to give me.
They're going to challenge you. They need to challenge
caption on the Instagram. Mm-hmm. People are seeking God for themselves.
Yeah.
They can tell me a thing or two.
Yeah.
And I'm more willing to accept their advice, honestly speaking.
Because they're seeking God for themselves.
Because it's organic. Because it's organic. I felt like you cooked this up in a kitchen somewhere, in a closet somewhere. Mm-hmm. You learned this for yourself before you gave it to me.
Yeah.
This is not reheated. It's not pre-chewed food. Like, you're talking to me and it's convincing. And so, yeah, I find myself gravitating to those people who are like-minded, right? In faith, in the walk, right? In their marriages, similar to myself. But I will say this, to find those like-minded people, you have to open yourself up, though. That's the dangerous part. Because like I said, you may have a couple who, both of them, you may have two couples, demographically, they're the same. So now how do you know which one to go with? You open up. You tell both of them, like, you know, oh, hey, you test out the water. You dip your toe in there. Yeah. You're going to have to get uncomfortable. Let's just be real. Mm-hmm. They're not just going to find you and be like, oh, hey, tell me if you agree with this so we can know we're like-minded so we can be friends. No. Mm-hmm. You got to put yourself out there. Sometimes I've had it happen where I've been shot down. No, it's not that. It's this. Okay, cool. I understand. I will not be talking to you about this. Great. We're so close. I thought we were a perfect fit. I love the fact that you mentioned friends. You can't just pick your friends. Yeah. Because some people are like, oh, I got 10 years invested. I have relationship equity in this right here. I can just use it. No, you can't. No, sorry. No. If it's not like-minded, you can't. And you can't force it to be either. Yeah. God has that community out there for you, by the way. I believe there are some things God only wants to give you through community. Come on. I feel like a pastor, but it's just the truth. I'm letting you know these tips. Like, there's some things God's like, I'm going to reveal this to you through community. Yeah. You're going to miss this opportunity because you're not looking for community.
Sometimes your marriage, that next level you're looking for, that thriving season that you're looking for, get out of yourselves and get into some community. You'll find it.
You'll find it.
You'll find it.
Oh, snap.
God be putting exactly what you're looking for in the midst of a specific group of people. But because you want to sit here and be all closed off, you missing out on what God has. You need to get out there. You need to get in community. God created it that way. Okay, so you got to get around it. You can't get around it, I should say. You can't get around it.
Believe it's the answers right there. Like when I was 18 years old and that Bible was right at my fingertips and I was saying, I can't find any answers in the Bible, so let me go to the world. The answers were still waiting for me when I came back. I just wasted time. Mm-hmm. And so we're giving you these tips so that you're not wasting time, right? Mm-hmm. We're repeating to you that relationship with God is foundational for yourself. Don't even worry about your spouse. As you're looking in this world for community, look for people who are also seeking God for themselves, who have like-minded with you. It's going to take your relationship, even in your personal relationship with your spouse, to a whole nother level, bro. Mm-hmm. Whole nother level.
I think that's all the tips. I would love to continue this conversation. I have found over the years that I love this. Like, and I didn't know that I would love this because, to be honest, like I mentioned before, I felt very bitter towards the way the church treated marriage and the way the church taught women about marriage. And I have found, thank God, through his revelation, through his word, the truth. And I am realizing that I truly love this conversation. And I'm really committed and dedicated at this point. I'm dedicating my life to teaching it and to showing and bringing clarity. I can't give you all the answers. I don't know your life. I don't know your history, but all I can do is walk alongside you to help you find clarity. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And to like offer what God has given to me so that you can go and dissect and ask God and for yourself, and you can find out for yourself and, you know,
Yeah.
So that's where I am. But that, I believe, is the end of our episode. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Black Marriage Therapy. If you haven't yet, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We have a private Facebook group.
And it's popping.
It's popping, called Black Marriage Therapy.
Growing every day.
Okay. And that's where we chat and continue these conversations, right? And if you have specific questions, you could DM us and we could talk more about it.
And let us know if you want us to continue this conversation. We could talk on this for hours. We're in our wheelhouse.
We really are.
We're talking about marriages and faith and giving clarity.
Yeah.
This is where we're at.
Well, thank you all for listening. I'm your host, Kristen Smith.
And I'm Junior Smith.
And we will see you guys soon.
Peace.